The transport vessel didn't so much land as it did become intimately acquainted with the ground at a velocity that physics textbooks would call inadvisable. Lieutenant Rona hung upside down in her crash webbing, listening to the cheerful sound of her ship's hull groaning like an elderly accordion player having a bad day. "Well," she muttered, fumbling with the release mechanism, "at least it's not Tuesday." The webbing gave way with a satisfying click that immediately became unsatisfying when gravity remembered it existed. Rona hit the deck, now technically the ceiling, with a thud that sent stars dancing across her vision. Pretty stars, sparkly, probably not a good sign. She took inventory. Left arm, functional. Right arm, also functional but complaining loudly. Ribs. Oh, those were definitely broken. At least 2, maybe 3. Leg, bleeding. Head, swimming. Pride, obliterated. "Med kit," she wheezed, dragging herself toward the emergency locker. Med kit, please still exist, med kit." The locker had survived. The med kit inside had not been so fortunate. Rona stared at the shattered vials and crushed applicators with the kind of philosophical acceptance usually reserved for people who have just watched their last cup of coffee spill. Of course. Outside, the jungle of Mirhala waited with all the patience of something that had been waiting for millions of years and could wait a few minutes more. Through the cracked viewport, Rona could see bioluminescent flora, painting the darkness in shades of blue and purple that would have been beautiful if she wasn't currently bleeding out. 2 moons hung overhead, like cosmic spectators placing bets on her survival odds. She gave herself even odds. Maybe less. The emergency hatch responded to her 3rd kick, which was good because she didn't have a 4th kick in her. The jungle air hit her like a warm, humid blanket, thick with the scent of things growing and things rotting, and sometimes both at once. "Right," Rona grunted, applying pressure to her leg wound with a strip torn from her uniform. "Shelter. Then, don't die. That's the plan. Solid plan." She half-crawled, half-dragged herself away from the crash site. Some distant part of her training whispered that staying with the vessel was protocol, but another, louder part noted that the vessel was currently smoking, and might attract attention of the unfriendly variety. The root system of a nearby tree, and calling it a tree was like calling an ocean a puddle, offered shelter. Massive roots twisted into natural caves, dark and relatively dry. Rona wedged herself into the largest opening, her vision starting to blur at the edges. Just rest. Just for a minute. Her eyes closed. Her eyes opened. Had it been a minute? An hour? The moons had moved. That seemed important, but she couldn't remember why. Something rustled in the underbrush. Rona's hand went to her sidearm, found it missing, remembered it had gone flying during the crash. Excellent. Just excellent. She was now officially defenseless, wounded, and, she checked, yes, still bleeding. The trifecta of bad days. The rustling came closer. 4 shapes emerged from the bioluminescent gloom, low to the ground, moving with the fluid grace of predators. Rona's brain, running on fumes and stubbornness, catalogued details. Bipedal, but comfortable on all 4s. Feline features. Fur that seemed to shift colors in the strange light. Retractable claws and eyes. Oh, those eyes reflected the moonlight like tiny lanterns. "Osherai," she breathed, the planet's dominant species. Apex predators. Also, unfortunately, not particularly fond of off-worlders. The creatures were small, though. Juveniles, maybe? Cubs? One of them, slightly larger than the others, with a distinctive ridge of darker fur along its spine, crept forward. Its nose twitched, sampling her scent. The cub's ears flattened against its skull. "Yeah, I know," Rona mumbled. "I probably smell terrible. No offense, but you're not exactly roses either." The cub tilted its head, clearly not understanding but seeming to recognize the tone as non-threatening. It chittered something to its companions. The smallest cub, barely half the size of the leader, made a sound that was almost a whimper. Another cub, this one with a notch missing from one ear, hissed and backed away. The fourth, distinguished by unusually long whiskers, sat on its haunches and stared at Rona with unblinking curiosity. The leader cub. Rona decided to call it leader cub because her brain was not processing creativity at the moment. Sniffed at her wounded leg. Its eyes widened. It turned to the others and made a series of rapid clicks and chirps. "What's the matter?" Rona asked, her words slurring. "Never seen an alien bleed before? It's just like your blood, probably. Maybe redder. Is yours red? I forget." The smallest cub pushed past the others, ignoring their warning growls. It approached Rona's leg, sniffed once, and then did something unexpected. It started to keen, a high-pitched sound of distress. "Hey, hey," Rona said, surprised by the creature's obvious concern. "I'm okay." "Well, no, I'm not okay. I'm pretty far from okay." "But, thanks for worrying?" The small cub looked up at her, and Rona saw something in those alien eyes that transcended species. Empathy. Pure, uncomplicated concern for a suffering creature. The cub turned to its companions and made a series of urgent sounds. The leader cub's ears twitched. The notch-eared one shook its head vigorously, clearly arguing against whatever the small one was proposing. The whiskered cub watched both, then nodded slowly. Some kind of consensus was reached. Before Rona could process what was happening, the cubs sprang into action. The leader cub darted off into the jungle. The notch-eared one began gathering broad leaves. The whiskered cub disappeared in another direction. The small one stayed, pressing itself against Rona's side, radiating warmth. "What are you guys doing?" Rona asked the darkness. The leader cub returned moments later, its mouth full of some kind of moss. It approached cautiously, and then, with surprising gentleness, began pressing the moss against Rona's leg wound. The effect was immediate. The bleeding slowed. A cooling sensation spread from the wound. "Oh," Rona breathed. "Oh, you're helping me." The notch-eared cub returned with leaves, and, working together with astonishing coordination for creatures so young, they fashioned a crude bandage. The whiskered cub came back with something even better, a strip of bark hollowed into a makeshift cup, filled with water. Rona drank. It was the best water she'd ever tasted, possibly because she was severely dehydrated, possibly because it was delivered by alien tiger cubs who had decided, against all logic, to help her. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know if you understand, but thank you." The small cub chirped and curled tighter against her side. The others began arranging leaves and branches around her makeshift shelter, improving it, weatherproofing it. Rona's mind swam. This didn't make sense. Osherai were predators. She was prey, wounded prey, easy prey. But these cubs, these children, they'd looked at her and seen not food, but someone who needed help. "You guys are going to get in so much trouble," she murmured, her eyes growing heavy again. "Your parents are probably looking for you. You should go home." The leader cub settled down at the entrance to the root cave, ears swiveling, clearly on watch. The notch-eared cub took position on the opposite side. The whiskered cub checked Rona's bandage one more time, seemed satisfied, and curled up near her feet. The small one nuzzled against her neck, purring. "Okay," Rona said to the universe at large. "Okay, this is happening. I'm being adopted by alien tiger cubs. This is my life now." She let her eyes close, listening to the sound of the cubs breathing, feeling the warmth of their small bodies, and thinking that if she was going to die on a backwater jungle planet, at least she wouldn't die alone. But somewhere in the back of her fading consciousness, a small, stubborn voice whispered, "Or maybe you won't die at all." The jungle night deepened. Strange calls echoed through the trees, some curious, some hungry. The cubs didn't sleep. They kept their vigil. 4 small shapes against a hostile world, guarding a creature they had no reason to protect except one. They'd chosen to. And for the Osherai, for all their reputation as ruthless predators, choice meant everything. The twin moons tracked across the sky. Rona's breathing evened out, steadied by the moss's medicinal properties and the warmth of her unlikely guardians. Her fever broke sometime after midnight, sweat cooling on her skin. The whiskered cub noticed first, checking her temperature with a paw to her forehead. It chittered softly to the others. The small cub's purring intensified, a sound of relief. Hours passed. The leader cub's ears suddenly pricked forward. It growled low in its throat. Something was moving in the jungle. Something big. The notch-eared cub's hackles raised. The whiskered cub moved to flank the entrance. Even the small cub, despite its size, positioned itself protectively over Rona's chest. Whatever was coming, they would face it together. The rustling grew closer. The sound that woke Rona wasn't the gentle chirping of the cubs or the ambient noise of the jungle. It was hissing. Lots of hissing. The kind of hissing that suggested something with entirely too many teeth was expressing its displeasure at finding occupied territory. She pried her eyes open to see the cubs in full defensive formation, their small bodies rigid with tension. Beyond the shelter, something moved through the underbrush with a sound like wet leather dragging over stone. "Oh, good," Rona croaked. "Company." The creature that emerged into the moonlight was the stuff of nightmares. Roughly the size of a ground transport, it had the body of a serpent, but with 6 legs that ended in hook-like claws. Its head was triangular, too wide, with a mouth that split vertically as well as horizontally. Rona's pain-fogged brain supplied a name from the briefing files she'd skimmed: Rift Serpent. "You guys should run," she told the cubs. "Seriously, I appreciate the hospitality, but that thing will eat all of us." The leader cub glanced back at her, and if a feline alien could look offended, this one managed it. It turned back to the serpent and yowled a challenge that was probably adorable to its parents, but utterly ineffective as intimidation. The rift serpent's response was to lunge. The notch-eared cub dove left, narrowly avoiding jaws that snapped shut with a sound like a steel trap. The whiskered cub darted right, claws extended, and managed to rake the serpent's flank. The creature barely noticed, twisting with horrifying speed to strike again. This time, the leader cub was ready. It had grabbed something from Rona's scattered gear, something small and cylindrical. The emergency flare. "Wait, do you know how to—" The cub bit down on the activation tab. Red light exploded across the clearing, brilliant and burning. The rift serpent recoiled, its photosensitive eyes overwhelmed. The cub dropped the flare, which rolled toward the serpent, spitting sparks and chemical flame. The serpent's survival instincts kicked in. Fire meant danger, meant pain, meant things best avoided. It retreated with a final hiss of frustration, slithering back into the depths of the jungle. Rona stared at the cubs, who were panting but unharmed save for a shallow bite on the leader cub's shoulder. You used my flare. You understood what it was." The leader cub looked at her, then at the flare, then back at her. Its expression clearly said, "Well, obviously." "Right, obviously. Why am I surprised? You're sentient. Of course you're sentient." Rona laughed, which hurt her ribs, which made her laugh harder in that slightly hysterical way that meant the pain medication from the moss was definitely wearing off. "I'm an idiot. A grateful idiot, but still." The small cub pressed against her again, its purring taking on a worried quality. The whiskered cub inspected the leader's bite, licking it clean with quick, efficient movements. The notch-eared cub paced the perimeter, clearly agitated. Rona reached out slowly, carefully, and touched the leader cub's head. It froze, then gradually leaned into her palm. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for fighting, for staying." The cub's eyes closed briefly, accepting the gratitude. As dawn broke over Mirhala, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Rona found herself more alert than she'd been since the crash. The moss bandage had worked miracles. Her leg wound had scabbed over, no signs of infection. Her ribs still felt like broken glass, but she could breathe without wanting to scream. The cubs had been busy. At some point during the night, they'd brought more water, more moss, and something that might have been fruit, or might have been a fungal growth. Rona eyed it suspiciously. The whiskered cub picked one up and ate it, watching her. Then it offered another. "Okay, peer pressure. I get it." Rona took the fruit fungus thing and bit down carefully. It tasted like mushrooms mixed with berries, and something earthy she couldn't identify. Not terrible. Actually, pretty good. Her stomach, which had been sending up complaints about the whole no-food situation, settled contentedly. The notch-eared cub had found Rona's datapad miraculously intact, and was batting at it with obvious fascination. The screen flickered on. "Hey, careful with that, it's—" Rona paused. "Wait, bring that here." The cub obliged, dragging the datapad over. Rona's fingers fumbled across the interface, navigating to the translation protocols. Military-grade equipment came with extensive xenolinguistic databases, just in case. She pulled up the Osherai language files. The datapad's speaker crackled. A synthesized voice spoke in Osherai, repeating her words. The cub's reactions were immediate. All four of them surrounded the datapad, ears forward, eyes wide. The leader cub touched the screen gingerly, then jumped back when it beeped. "It's okay," Rona said, and the datapad translated. "It's a machine. It helps me understand you. Can you understand me?" The small cub chirped excitedly and nodded. Actually nodded. The others exchanged glances, then the leader cub leaned close to the datapad and made a series of deliberate sounds. The datapad's translation came through tinny but clear. "You are hurt. We help. Others come. Bad others." Rona's blood went cold. "What others? How many?" The leader cub held up 3 claws. It gestured 2. Itself and the other cubs then made a much larger gesture, indicating size and presumably age. 3 adults, coming here." The notch-eared cub added something the datapad translated as "Territory pack. Angry. We are not territory. You are not pack. Both wrong place." "Oh, that's just fantastic." Rona tried to sit up straighter, her mind racing despite the pain. "You kids wandered into someone else's territory, and now they're coming to deal with the intruders, which includes me." The whiskered cub spoke, its tone matter-of-fact. "They will kill, not pack. Is law." "Yeah, I figured." Rona looked at the cubs. at these children who'd saved her life. "You should go, before they get here. I can't run, but you can. Go home to your families." The leader cub's response was immediate and emphatic. The datapad translated, "No, you are our protect. We choose, we stay." "That's incredibly brave and incredibly stupid," Rona said, but her throat felt tight. "I'm nobody. I'm just some human who crashed in the wrong place." The small cub climbed into her lap, looked up at her with those luminous eyes, and spoke. The datapad's translation was simple. "You are Pack. Pack stays." Rona felt something break open in her chest, something warm and terrifying and utterly unfamiliar. These cubs, these children of a species that should have seen her as prey or enemy, or at best an irrelevance, had decided she was worth protecting, had decided she was family. "You're going to make me cry," she muttered. "And crying hurts my ribs, so please stop being so." The leader cub's ears swiveled. Its body went rigid. They were out of time. The territorial pack arrived like thunder given form. 3 adult Osherai, easily twice the size of the cubs, melted out of the jungle with the casual confidence of apex predators in their own domain. The one in the lead was male, his fur scarred and his right ear torn, the mark of many battles. The 2 flanking him were younger, but no less dangerous. The scarred male's eyes found the cubs first, then Rona, then back to the cubs. His expression cycled through confusion, disbelief, and finally, anger. He spoke, his voice a deep rumble. The datapad translated, "Cubs, step away from the prey thing. You shame your bloodline with this cowardice showing." The leader cub stepped forward instead, placing itself directly between the adults and Rona. Its voice was high, childish, but steady. "She is not prey. She is Pack. We protect Pack." The scarred male, who Rona mentally dubbed Scar, actually laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. "You protect? You are cubs. You know nothing of Pack law. This soft thing is alien, weak, wounded. It exists to be consumed or driven out." The notch-eared cub joined the leader, hackles raised. "She protected us. Night Serpent came. She gave us Fire Stick. We fought together." One of the younger adults, a female with sleek fur, looked interested. She spoke. "The cubs fought Rift Serpent? And survived?" "With her help," the whiskered cub insisted, gesturing at Rona with a paw. "She is hurt, but she helped. Pack helps Pack." Scar growled, a sound that vibrated in Rona's bones. "Enough foolishness. Move. Now." The cubs linked together, forming a living barrier. The small one's voice was barely a whisper through the datapad. "No. You hurt her. You hurt us first." Rona's hand found her sidearm, finally located in the scattered gear. She drew it with shaking hands, knowing it was futile, but unable to watch these children face death for her. She aimed at Scar, her vision swimming. "You want them?" Her voice came out stronger than she felt. "You go through me first." Scar's eyes fixed on the weapon, calculating. Then he looked at the cubs, at their defensive formation, at their absolute refusal to abandon her. "You would die for this?" he asked them, his tone almost curious now. "For creature not Pack?" "She is Pack," the leader cub said, and this time all 4 cubs spoke in unison. "She is Pack. We choose." The moment stretched, taut as a wire. And then the sky opened up with the roar of engines, and everything got infinitely more complicated. The dropship descended like a falling star, all gleaming metal and atmospheric fire. Its engines kicked up a whirlwind of leaves and debris as it settled into the clearing with the kind of precision that spoke of military training. Rona squinted against the backwash, her free hand shielding her face. The boarding ramp dropped with a pneumatic hiss. 8 figures emerged, adult Osherai in fitted armor that gleamed with rank insignia and unit markings. Elite Guard. Oh, this just kept getting better. The commander who led them was massive, easily the largest Osherai Rona had seen. His fur was silver-shot with age, his armor bore more medals than a war museum, and his eyes swept the scene with the kind of tactical assessment that missed nothing. He took in the cubs, the territorial pack, and Rona with her pistol in about 2 seconds. His voice, when he spoke, could have cut steel. The datapad translated, "Stand down, all of you. Explain this situation immediately." Scar stepped forward, his posture respectful but firm. "Commander Knoxhell, we discovered these cubs in our territory with this armed alien. We were enforcing territorial law when you arrived." Knoxhall's gaze shifted to the cubs. "Cubs, you are from the settlement outskirts. Your parents have been searching for 2 rotations. Why are you here? Why do you defend this human?" The leader cub opened its mouth, but the small one spoke first, its voice trembling but determined. "She was dying. We found her. She was hurt and alone, and we helped her because that is what Pack does. She did not threaten us. She accepted our help with gratitude showing. She gave us fire against the night serpent," the whiskered cub added. "She protected us even though she was wounded." "She is ours to guard," the notch-eared cub declared. "Not prey, not enemy. Ours." Knoxhall's expression was unreadable. He looked at Rona, taking in her makeshift bandages, her obvious injuries, the way she was barely staying upright. "Human, lower your weapon." Rona's laugh was bitter. "Yeah, that's not happening. Not while these kids are in danger. They saved my life. I'm not letting anyone hurt them." "You believe you can stop the elite guard with 1 pistol and broken ribs?" Knoxhall's tone was almost amused. "Probably not," Rona admitted. "But I'm going to try anyway, because apparently I've been adopted by tiger cubs, and I take my parental responsibilities seriously." That got a reaction. Several of the elite guard exchanged glances. One of them, a lean female with intricate markings, made a sound that might have been a stifled laugh. Knoxhall held up a hand. "Lower your weapon, human. I am not here to harm the cubs. I am here to retrieve them and understand why they abandoned their settlement." "They abandoned it to save me," Rona said, but she lowered the pistol slightly. Her arm was shaking from the effort of holding it anyway. "They didn't have to. I'm nobody to them. But they chose to help." The territorial pack's female spoke up, her tone thoughtful. "Commander, if I may, we witnessed the cubs' defense. They fought with coordination, with purpose. They treated the human as pack kin. It is unusual." "Unusual?" Scar scoffed. "It is wrong thinking. Cubs do not adopt alien prey." "She is not prey!" The leader cub's voice cracked with emotion. "She has name. She has thoughts. She speaks through the light box. She is person." Rona blinked. In all the chaos, she'd forgotten the most basic courtesy. "My name is Rona," she said through the datapad. "Lieutenant Rona. I'm a combat medic with the Terran Transport Service. My ship crashed. I was dying when these kids found me. They could have left me, should have left me. Instead, they stayed. They brought medicine, water, warmth. They fought a rift serpent to protect me. So yeah, maybe it's unusual, but it happened." Knoxhall approached slowly, his movements careful. He stopped at the edge of the root shelter, studying Rona with eyes that had seen decades of war and peace and everything between. "Show me your injuries." "Why?" "Because I wish to understand what drove cubs to such loyalty." Rona hesitated, then gestured to her leg. The whiskered cub carefully peeled back the moss bandage, revealing the wound beneath. It was healing remarkably well, but the gash was still angry, deep, the kind of injury that should have been fatal without immediate medical attention. Noxhal's eyes widened fractionally. Silver moss. They used silver moss. How did they know? Know what? Silver moss is rare, medicinal. Most cubs do not learn of its properties until much later in life. He looked at the small cub. How did you know to use this? The small cub shuffled its feet. Mother uses it. When brother cut paw. I remembered. Thought it might help soft skin, too. One of the elite guard, an older male with graying muzzle, stepped forward. Commander, permission to scan the crash site? Granted. The guard moved to the wreckage, pulling out a handheld scanner. The device beeped and whirred. After a moment, he called back. No weapons discharge, no biological hazards, equipment failure in the main drive. This was an accident, not an incursion. Rona felt a weight lift slightly. At least they wouldn't think she was a spy or saboteur. Noxhal turned to Scar. The human was not hunting, not invading, simply unlucky. Perhaps, Scar said, but his tone had lost some of its certainty. But the cubs still violated territory, still showed weakness by helping outsider. Did they? Noxhal's question hung in the air. He addressed the cubs directly. Tell me, when you found this human, what did you feel? The cubs looked at each other. The leader cub spoke first. Fear. She was strange, smelled wrong, looked wrong. The notch-eared cub nodded. I wanted to run, wanted to hide. But we did not, the whiskered cub said, because she was hurt, and hurting things need help. The small cub's voice was quiet. She looked at us. Even hurt, she tried to speak soft, tried to show no threat. She was good spirit. I could feel it. Noxhal knelt, bringing himself to the cub's level. You felt compassion. You acted on it, despite fear. You protected a creature that could offer you nothing in return. Do you understand what you did? The leader cub's ears flattened. Did wrong thing? No. Noxhal's voice was gentle. You demonstrated the highest principle of Osherai culture. True strength is not in claws or teeth. It is in choosing to protect those who cannot protect themselves. You are cubs, yes, but you showed the heart of warriors. Rona's vision blurred, and she wasn't entirely sure it was from the concussion. Scar made a disgusted sound. Warriors? They are soft, weak. They endangered themselves for alien. They endangered themselves for principle, Noxahal corrected. There is a difference. He stood, addressing the territorial pack. What did you intend when you found them? To remove the alien, to teach the cubs proper law. By killing in front of them? By showing them that might makes right, and compassion is weakness? Noxhal's tone hardened. That is not our way. That has never been our way. The female from the territorial pack stepped forward, her posture submissive, but her voice clear. Commander, my mate speaks from tradition, but perhaps tradition can learn from this. I watched the alien point her weapon at us. She could barely stand. She was shaking with pain. But she aimed true. She would have died defending cubs that are not her species, not her kin, not her responsibility. Is that not also warrior spirit? Noxhal looked at Rona with new assessment. Would you have fired, knowing it would mean your death? Rona met his gaze. Yes, because they're kids. And I don't care what species you are. You don't let kids get hurt if you can do something about it, even if that something is completely futile and gets you killed. Humans, Noxhal said, and there was something like respect in his voice. You are illogical. Yeah, we get that a lot. One of the elite guard, The female with intricate markings approached the cubs. "Little ones, do you know what you have done? You have created bond debt with alien species. This is rare. This is significant." The leader cub looked confused. "We just helped. Like Pack helps." "Exactly," the female said softly. "Like Pack helps. You have expanded definition of Pack beyond species, beyond logic, into something greater." Noxhal pulled out a communication device, speaking rapidly in Osherai, too quick for the datapad to translate effectively. After a moment, he lowered the device and addressed the group. "Medical transport is incoming. The human will be treated. The cubs will be returned to their parents, who are—" He paused, checking his device. "Currently aboard my ship and very anxious." "Wait," Rona said. "Their parents are with the elite guard." "The cubs are offspring of guard members," Noxhal explained, "which makes their actions even more significant. They have been raised in warrior tradition. They understand duty, honor, and sacrifice. When they chose to help you, they were not acting from ignorance. They were acting from understanding." The small cub suddenly launched itself at Rona, wrapping small arms around her neck. The others followed, creating a pile of cubs in her lap. Rona's ribs screamed in protest, but she didn't care. She held them as best she could, these impossible children who'd saved her life. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for being brave, for being kind, for being better than the universe probably deserves." The leader cub pulled back, looking at her seriously. Through the datapad, its words were solemn. "You are Pack now. Pack is forever." "Yeah," Rona said, her voice breaking. "Yeah, okay. Pack is forever." Noxhal watched this exchange with an expression that might have been approval. He turned to Scar. "The territorial violation will be overlooked. The cubs were engaged in mercy mission. Your territory was not threatened." Scar looked like he wanted to argue, but his mate placed a paw on his shoulder. She spoke quietly, but her words carried, "Let it go. We have witnessed something rare, perhaps something important. Do not taint it with territory pride." Scar's shoulders sagged. He nodded reluctantly. The medical transport arrived with considerably less drama than the dropship, settling gently at the clearing's edge. Medical personnel emerged, Osherai trained in xenobiology, their equipment humming with readiness. As they loaded Rona onto a stretcher, the cubs hovering anxiously nearby, Noxhal made a decision that would ripple through Osherai human relations for years to come. "Lieutenant Rona," he said formally, "I declare you friend of the Osherai. This is highest honor we can bestow upon outsider. You have earned it through character and through bond with our young. Do you accept?" Rona, flat on her back and wrapped in medical scanners, managed a tired smile. "I accept, and I'm never letting these kids forget they adopted the galaxy's unluckiest pilot." The medical bay aboard Noxahal's flagship was nothing like Rona had expected. She'd imagined sterile metal, harsh lights, the impersonal efficiency of military vessels. Instead, the walls were carved with intricate murals depicting Osherai history. The lighting was warm and amber-toned, and someone had thought to include what looked suspiciously like a garden in one corner. "We believe healing requires beauty," the medical officer explained through her translator, adjusting the regeneration field around Rona's ribs. "Pain is easier to bear when surrounded by life." Rona watched the officer work, her amber fur streaked with the silver markings of the medical caste. "You're really good at this." "I have treated 17 species," the officer said without pride, merely stating fact. "Humans are not so different from Osherai in basic physiology, though your bones are disturbingly fragile." "Yeah, We didn't evolve on a death world like you guys did. Mirhala is not death world. It is simply thorough in its lessons. The officer's whiskers twitched in what might have been amusement. Your leg wound is responding well to treatment. The silver moss prevented infection. Those cubs saved your life with that alone. Where are they? Rona tried to sit up, then thought better of it when her ribs protested. With their parents, being simultaneously hugged and scolded, I imagine. The officer stepped back, examining her scanner readings. You should rest, but I suspect you will have visitors soon. She was right. The cubs arrived like a small tornado, accompanied by 4 adult Osherai, who could only be their parents. The adults were a study in contrasts. 2 wore guard armor, 1 wore civilian robes, and 1 had the practical clothing of what Rona's translator identified as a settlement coordinator. The cubs immediately rushed to Rona's bedside, climbing carefully onto the medical platform despite their parents' half-hearted protests. "Gentle!" one of the armored adults called out. "She is still healing." "We know, Father," the leader cub protested. "We are being soft paws." Father was the right word. The resemblance was obvious now that Rona saw them together. The same distinctive ridge of darker fur along the spine, the same intense eyes. He approached slowly, his body language carefully neutral. "Lieutenant Rona," he said through the translator. "I am Boros. This is my mate, Lyra." He gestured to the robed Osherai, who had the same sleek features as the leader cub. "Our son has told us much. I wanted to meet the human who inspired such loyalty." "I didn't inspire anything," Rona said. "I just crashed and bled. Your son and his friends did everything else." Lyra moved closer, studying Rona with keen intelligence. "Our son left the settlement 3 nights ago with his friends. We searched everywhere. The guard was alerted. We feared predators, accidents, 100 terrible things. And we find him here, having fought Rift Serpent, having nursed Alien back to health, having stood against territorial pack." She paused. "We do not know whether to be proud or terrified." "Both?" Rona suggested. "That's pretty much where I'm at." The small cub's mother, the settlement coordinator, laughed. It was a warm sound, full of genuine amusement. "I like this human. She has wisdom." "Mother!" the small cub protested, but it was purring. The third set of parents approached more cautiously. The father had the same notched ear as his cub, clearly a family trait. "Our daughter has always been cautious one. She argued against helping, she says. But she stayed anyway. She fought anyway. We are learning our daughter is braver than she believes." The notch-eared cub buried her face in her father's fur, embarrassed but pleased. The whiskered cub's parents were both guard, and they carried themselves with that particular blend of pride and concern that marked military families throughout the galaxy. "Our son used tactical thinking," his mother said. "Recognized the flare as weapon, deployed it effectively, coordinated defense with his friends, showed initiative and courage." She looked at Rona directly. "These are guard values. You brought them out in him." "I think they were already there," Rona said softly. "I just gave them a reason to surface." Boros spoke again, his tone more serious now. "Commander Noxhall has declared you friend of the Osherai. This is not ceremonial. It means you have status, rights, protection under our law. It means you are considered one of us, though you are not born of us." "What does that mean practically?" "It means," Lyra said, settling beside her son, "that you can petition for residency, work among us, live among us. You would not be outsider. You would be strange cousin, perhaps, but family nonetheless. Rona's throat tightened. I appreciate that, but I have a job. A life. Back with the transport service. The leader cub's ears drooped. You leave? Forever leave? I don't know. I crashed. They'll send a rescue ship eventually. I have responsibilities. Responsibilities to who? The small cub asked. Its voice was small, plaintive. To machines? To empty ships? Or to pack? That was an uncomfortable question. Before Rona could answer, the medical bay doors opened again. Noxhal entered, accompanied by another human. A woman in transport service uniform, commander's insignia on her collar, with the weathered look of someone who'd spent decades in space. Lieutenant Rona, the woman said, her voice crisp but not unkind. Commander Elise, Thorn, Transport Service Diplomatic Corps. We received your emergency beacon. Came to retrieve you. Rona tried to salute from her prone position. Commander, apologies for the crash. Equipment failure in the main drive, sir. At ease, Lieutenant. We've reviewed the flight logs. No fault assigned. Thorn looked around the medical bay, taking in the assembled Osherai. Seems you've been busy. I made some friends. So I've heard. Thorn pulled up a chair, settling in with the ease of someone comfortable in any situation. Commander Noxhal has filled me in. Quite the situation. 4 Osherai cubs, a rift serpent, territorial dispute, and the first official human Osherai bond in recorded history. When you put it like that, it sounds more impressive than it was. Lieutenant, you survived a crash that should have killed you, held off territorial predators with broken ribs, and somehow became adoptive pack to the children of Osherai elite guard members. I'd say impressive is an understatement. The cubs had gone very still, watching this exchange. The leader cub spoke up, addressing Thorn directly. You take her away? Back to Sky Place? Thorn looked at the cub with something like surprise. That's the plan, yes. She's transport service, has duties to fulfill. But we are her pack now, the small cub said. Pack does not leave pack. Kid, it's not that simple. Why not? Lyra interrupted, her tone gentle but firm. Humans assigned to diplomatic posts, yes? To stations, to embassies, to cultural exchange programs? Thorn nodded slowly. Yes, but... Osherai have opened relations with Terran government 6 months ago, Poros said. We have agreed to cultural liaison exchange. We have been waiting for right human candidate. Someone who understands us. Someone we can trust. Noxhal stepped forward. What if I formally request Lieutenant Rona as human cultural liaison, stationed here on Mirhala, working with guard on integration protocols? Thorn's eyebrows rose. That would be irregular. She has bond with our children, one of the whiskered cub's parents said. She has proven her character. She has earned friend status. Who better to bridge our peoples? I'm a medic, Rona protested weakly, not a diplomat. Medics heal, the medical officer said from her station. What is diplomacy but healing between peoples? Thorn sat back, thinking. Rona could see the calculations happening behind her eyes, the political considerations, the practical realities. Finally, she spoke. Lieutenant, if you agree, I can authorize a 2-year posting as cultural liaison. You'd maintain your rank, your benefits, but you'd be working directly with the Osherai, learning their culture, teaching them ours, building the foundation for deeper cooperation. It would be challenging, potentially dangerous, definitely unprecedented. And the cubs? Rona asked, looking at the 4 small faces watching her with hope and fear in equal measure. Would be part of your assignment, Noxhal said. They initiated the bond. They should help maintain it. Under supervision, of course. They are still children. We are very responsible children, the leader cub insisted. You fought a rift serpent and adopted an alien, his father said dryly. Your definition of responsible needs calibration. Rona looked at each cub in turn. The leader with his brave eyes and healing shoulder wound. The notch-eared one who'd been cautious but loyal. The whiskered one who'd thought tactically even in crisis. The small one who'd shown pure compassion when nothing else made sense. If I stay, she said slowly, we do this right. I'm not just your friend. I'm your teacher. You want to be part of bridge building? You learn both cultures, human and Osherai. You work hard. You study. You grow into the warriors you're clearly meant to be. The cubs looked at each other, then back at her, then nodded in perfect unison. We accept, the leader cub said solemnly. Rona took a deep breath, felt her healing ribs protest, and made a decision that would change everything. Then I accept too.